First, it was black Karmelo Anthony stabbing white Austin Metcalf to death over seating at a sports event. Black America told us the murderer was the real victim. Then it was black Jason Arday, a con man and a pathological liar who got himself a Cambridge professorship. After he was exposed for his plagiarism, he killed himself, and the universities told us that he was the real victim and that we, the public, killed him. Now it's white Massachusetts nurse Lindsay Clancy, who strangled her 3 kids to death in a narcissistic rage, and women across the country are telling us that this maternal murderer is the real victim. Tonight on Disaffected. We'll also be joined by child abuse survivor and advocate Anna Runkle, known as the Crappy Childhood Fairy on YouTube. She's going to discuss her lawsuit against the state of California. They accused her of practicing psychology without a license, and she's fighting back. It's August 23rd, 2026, and I'm Josh Slocum. This is Disaffected, and so are you. The Karmelo Anthony case just won't die, unlike his victim, Austin Metcalf. To summarize and refresh the case for you, 17-year-old black teen Karmelo Anthony stabbed 17-year-old white teen Austin Metcalf in the heart, killing him instantly in April of 2025. You see them both there on your screen. Black people across America threatened the murdered boy's family and raised more than $500,000 for Karmelo the murderer and his parents. They were delighted to see a black boy get to murder a white boy. Loved it. And we all had to put up with degenerate ghetto blacks blaming their murderous ways on white people, including on the dead white victim himself. Now there's more. Karmelo Anthony's attorney has successfully convinced Texas courts to remove the original judge who presided over the murder trial, remove him from any decisions about an appeal or about a new trial. So by this coming Monday, we will find out if this new judge is going to vacate the murder conviction and give baby boy Karmelo a second chance to walk free. But that's not all. Come to find out that the prosecution and the defense in this recent murder trial, Karmelo Anthony was convicted of murder and sentenced to 35 years in prison. The prosecution and the defense had what they are calling a gentleman's agreement not to discuss the backgrounds and character of either murderer Karmelo or victim Austin Metcalf. Remember, these two boys had never met each other prior to this incident where the murder took place. They did not know each other. They've got no history with each other. Well, that background is coming out now, and it's just what you'd expect for baby boy Karmelo, who done got railroaded because he black. Quote, at the center of the new trial hearing is an oral agreement between Anthony's original defense team and prosecutors to keep potentially damaging character evidence about both sides from the jury. That's from Fox News. Next quote, lead prosecutor Bill Worski said the agreement was mutual and that the parties were aligned on the need to keep character evidence out of the trial. Worski said the state did not believe the agreement applied to Karmelo Anthony's testimony. There was no testimony, it turns out, from Karmelo Anthony. He didn't take the stand. Well, we have some of that character evidence now, but first we have to get Austin and Hunter Metcalf's juvenile records out of the way. Recall that Austin had a twin brother, Hunter. Hunter is still alive. This is what the Karmelo Anthony defense will use to argue that Karmelo Anthony was acting in self-defense. He wasn't, but this is what they will use. They're going to use the fact that the Metcalf boys painted some racist graffiti on walls sometime in the past. We can't know when because the news has not disclosed the ages at which this juvenile behavior took place. And again, remember, Karmelo Anthony did not know Austin Metcalf or Hunter Metcalf prior to the day that he killed Austin Metcalf. They did not know each other. Karmelo seated himself that day under another team's tent at a track meet, and then he killed Austin when Austin told him he wasn't on the team and he needed to leave the tent. Following is from CBS News. Austin Metcalf and his brother Hunter Metcalf were once caught spray painting graffiti, including KKK Kill All Blacks and Heil Hitler, along with the N-word, and were sentenced to 12 months of juvenile probation, court documents show. So they painted some nasty slurs. What about baby boy Karmelo? I'm going to read this out to you from the CBS News article. On the day that Karmelo Anthony would fatally stab... No, we don't. Yeah, wait a second on that, please, Kevin. Thank you. On the day that Karmelo Anthony would fatally stab Austin Metcalf, prosecutors say that he sent a text message at 1 a.m. which said, "I'm low-key on the verge," and then emphasized it. Later in the morning on April 2nd, 2025, and hours before Karmelo Anthony would kill Austin Metcalf with a knife at a high school track meet, prosecutors said Karmelo Anthony's girlfriend reported to a Centennial High School staff member that Karmelo Anthony was, quote, engaging in stalking behavior to include but not limited to driving by her home and refusing to allow her to end their relationship. Also in a 75-page filing, prosecutors say Karmelo Anthony had previously been accused of stealing his girlfriend's phone and, in October 2024, wrote a to-do list for his girlfriend about how to deal with, quote, weirdos, which included the line, "Say some slick like my boyfriend kill people." That's Negro. So, just as I suspected, it appears that Karmelo did indeed bring a knife to the track meet that day, looking to hurt someone. Here we're going to get into the screen quotes. In 2023, prosecutors say Karmelo Anthony told a friend he was going to vandalize someone's house in Austin, Texas, saying, "I just feel like it. I got a grudge." Next one. In a text conversation with a friend in 2023, prosecutors have messages from Karmelo Anthony in which he wrote, "I'ma shoot the school up, TMR, with my blick," but later sent messages saying, "I would never actually do that." Finally, after numerous suspensions for fighting while attending school in Louisiana, there are messages between Karmelo Anthony and his girlfriend after he moved to Frisco, Texas. Court documents show. In one message thread, she suggests he should just sit for a while, and he replied, "Yeah, and punch people, maybe run sometimes. I have to. It's like a priority for me. I like punching people. When I get mad, I see red. When I get mad, I black out. When I get mad, I can't control myself." So we wait now for the judge to rule on whether Karmelo's conviction gets thrown out, and we have to go through this circus all over again because we don't like it when blacks are punished for murdering whites. Later in the show, we're going to show you how American women have turned child-killing mother Lindsay Clancy into their very own Karmelo Anthony. Everything we talked about in that case on last week's show has gotten even worse. There are women gathering in pink shirts outside the Massachusetts courthouse where Lindsay's trial is taking place, crying tears and shouting, "We love you, Lindsay," as her motorcade brings her to the trial. Let's take a break and fuel up before we get into the rest of this mess. Candy bar companies want you to reach out for a protein-packed sugar bar when you're hungry, but that's not a really good idea. Snarf down a chocolate bar or a bag of chips, some Pringles. You're just going to end up hungry and hangry later when you have a blood sugar crash from all those carbohydrates. Open a bag of biltong instead. What is biltong, you ask? It's a South African way of curing thinly sliced meat with vinegar and seasonings, and our friends at BiltongUSA.com make the best cured beef I have ever had, and I would like you to try it because I think you'll love it. Biltong tastes like what it is. It's high-quality beef prepared by a family business and shipped to your door from the great state of Texas in a cold pack. Just pop those bags in your fridge and pull one out when you're hungry. It is best, like cheese, which I highly recommend you pair some quality cheese with this. It is best at room temperature, and it keeps just fine for a couple days in one of the brown paper bags that BiltongUSA.com sends you in your order. If you like beef jerky and other dried meat, you are never going to go back to the ordinary stuff or the Slim Jims at the corner store after you've tried what's on offer at BiltongUSA.com. And when you do place your order, remember to use promo code JOSH to get 10% off. Come back For the next part, we've got a conversation with Anna Runkle, known as the Crappy Childhood Fairy on YouTube. Anna survived an abusive, drug-addled childhood, and she stopped going to therapy after years of it because she said that it made her worse. What she did was she started a writing and a meditation practice that she says finally freed her from the after effects of child abuse, and for years she's been sharing it with other survivors. But the state of California wants to put a gag over her mouth. They accused her of practicing psychology without a license for discussing these things on YouTube and for daring to take money for consultations and coaching. Well, Anna is fighting back with a First Amendment lawsuit. Don't miss this. We sat down with Anna Runkle, the Crappy Childhood Fairy, a few days ago to start what is going to be a longer conversation. Anna is the coach and consultant who is suing the state of California because they are trying to put her out of business with the accusation of practicing psychology without a license. So this is the beginning of our conversation, and we'll have the rest coming up for you this week, Wednesday, August 26th at 3 p.m. U.S. Eastern on our live stream. After years of therapy didn't help her, Anna put together a program of writing and reflective practices that helped her finally push past the damage that her childhood had done with her. And for years, she shared this with other child abuse victims. Anna is not a therapist. She does not claim to be a therapist, and she goes out of her way to alert readers, viewers, and listeners that she is not offering professional mental health therapy. The state of California's Board of Psychology is trying to put her out of business. And if you're not aware of this, state professional regulatory boards are nothing but medieval trade guilds. Their function is to professionalize their trade and restrict who can practice it to restrict competition. They write laws that make certain practices illegal unless you jump through the hoops that they set up for you to gain admission. The justification is always public safety, but that is a lie. It's a fig leaf. It's easy to see how little it does to protect California residents, for example, when you cast your eyes out and see the incompetent licensed practitioners that are crawling throughout that state and making people worse, not better. The California board accused Anna of practicing psychology without a license and subjected her to days of grueling in-person interrogation armed at finding a way to make her guilty. She's fighting back. Anna has filed suit against the California Board of Psychology, and she joins us tonight to talk about it. This is going to be the beginning of a longer conversation that we'll have with Anna on an upcoming live stream, so check back soon. Anna, welcome to Disaffected.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you for having me on.
Thanks for making the time. And I should let everybody know, if you want to find her on YouTube, her YouTube channel is called The Crappy Childhood Fairy. And there's a picture of it there. Not hard to find, and highly recommended. Let me ask you to describe in your words your coaching and writing practice, where it came from, how long you've been doing it.
Well, it started in 1994. I had been in therapy for years. I had a really traumatic childhood. I grew up in a commune with a druggie mom, and the stuff that goes with that, which you're kind of familiar with.
Yes, I am.
We were very poor. We were often hungry. We were completely unsupervised. There was sexually inappropriate stuff going on around the house. A lot of instability. My mom would just sort of run away from the family, sometimes for months at a time. So it affected me. The good side of things was I was like the tough kid who took care of younger kids. So I ended up with some skills, how to get along with teachers and moms in the neighborhood, how to get food for everybody. And it always was my story, like, I just got through this hard thing and I'm fine. But it started to fall apart just around my 30th birthday. And I had a few bad things happen all at once. My mother died. I got my heart broken, and I got randomly assaulted out on the street, knocked unconscious, had my jaw and teeth broken, and I had PTSD. And it wasn't diagnosed as PTSD. The doctor, gave me Xanax. The therapist said you should come in 3 times a week, and that was like a very bad combination for somebody with PTSD. Talk about the trauma, talk about the trauma, talk about the trauma. Now take Xanax. And within a few months, it had pushed me to the brink of suicide. So luckily, somebody showed me something very simple. She was a woman who was in AA, still is. It's a long time ago, but she was a friend. We were in some theater group, and I gave her a ride, and I told her what I was thinking of doing. And she said, come, let me talk to you about this. Come here. I have something that might help you. And defensively, I allowed her to show me something very simple that she was doing that a person in AA showed her. It's not what everybody does in AA, but a person had showed her this way to get your anxious and angry thoughts and feelings on paper and pray that they are removed or release them, and then follow it with meditation. And I usually was very resistant to people telling me anything back then, but I was pretty desperate and I tried it. And like by the next morning, I felt really good. And I did it, started doing it twice a day, like she told me, write and meditate twice a day. And then within a couple weeks, I didn't really have PTSD anymore. The depression had lifted. I had a shit ton of problems in my life, which tends to happen to those of us who grow up with a lot of trauma. There's just a lot of, dysfunctional relationship, money, living situation, work stuff. So that took time for me to sort out. But I didn't stand a chance to solve life problems before I had this technique. I didn't know what the miracle was of why it helped so much. But later, 20 years later, I learned about complex PTSD. It didn't have a name when I was going through all of this.
Right.
And neurological dysregulation. I was just completely discombobulated all the time.
Yeah.
And the writing and the meditation sorted that out, which put me sort of on a level playing field where I could solve life problems, where I could see what is even going on here. I used to have no clue, like, why does this keep happening to me? I couldn't see how I would have a role in it. And therapists certainly didn't encourage me seeing that I have a role to play in the problems that I had. And so that was the big thing, is this 23-year-old girl with tattoos said, oh, no, yeah, you're fucking up. And
Yeah.
let me tell you how. And it was like the best thing anybody ever did. I was like, what? Fuck up? No, I'm the good girl. And she just kind of leveled with me about where I was creating problems and alienating everybody. And it allowed me to sort things out very quickly after being completely stuck and deteriorating for decades.
So your experience of what I assume was professional licensed therapy was that it sounds like it made it, you felt significantly worse.
I felt worse. In those days especially, but quite a lot today, it was the understanding that if you had trauma, you needed to talk about it. Like getting beat up on the street, you got to talk about that, like, again and again. But you don't actually. I mean, I understand the value and need to tell the truth about things to somebody in some way, but it is not in itself therapeutic. The more you talk, the more you feel better is wrong. It doesn't work that way. If you had trauma, there's a brain pathway. It's just going to set off all this dysregulation. It's going to make you worse. So I used to just sit there and tremble after therapy visits, and they'd be like, good, you're processing a lot of stuff. I wasn't processing anything. I was just like flipping out. Couldn't drive my car home.
Like just reopening the wound, aggravating it.
Even more than that, it wasn't just opening the emotional wound. It's like taking the organization of your nervous system, which keeps you kind of like positioned in gravity and space and awareness and reality, and it would just sit there and fill it with noise. I always, when I try to describe to people what it was like, say it was like having headphones on where it's like screaming AC/DC, but you have to pretend that that's not happening, and you're right there going, mm-hmm. But I couldn't really ever hear what was going on. And it wasn't as bad before the assault, but after the assault, I was just like, I couldn't function. I couldn't read. I couldn't use the telephone. Like, nobody would help me. So it reached a crisis point that really changed everything. And I'd been, growing up in a commune in Berkeley, I was raised with these crazy values. Like, you got to follow your dreams and do whatever you want. And if it feels right, you should do that. And the grown-ups going
Yes.
through all of that with my generation of kids in the like very early 70s, there was hardly a home that didn't end up with losing a child to suicide, overdose, or mental health crisis. Underneath all of that, there was so much sexual abuse, so much like loss of boundaries, parents just deciding they got to find themselves. They didn't have to like show up and make dinner or make sure you got to school. I mean, it was just chaos. And I don't think that that's ever really been acknowledged by the culture, that the hippie thing was rarely like all peace and love and, something wonderful. It was extremely unstructured. And so getting help for that from basically the same generation of people
The
when I
same
was then,
people.
the same people, like they couldn't really hear the
Yeah.
problem. I mean, they could, but that's something that's gotten much more exaggerated now in therapy culture. Like on the one hand, they've learned a little bit about trauma, a little bit, but there's just so much of this like validating of your feelings. And, like my
Yes.
feelings back then, validation was the wrong thing because they were like, my feelings were completely exaggerated and distorted because of PTSD. And so just validating everything was like inviting me to just like go down the rabbit hole of, oh my God, everything's terrible. I couldn't pull myself together from there. It was very disruptive to my like self-organization. It turns out writing is a different brain pathway. And writing, what these, I think some people it is kind of more somatic. It's like a body thing. I'm more of a thinky person, very thinky, very like my inner monologue is always going. And when I'm not feeling good, it's very angry and anxious. And I'm always like, I'm really worried about things. I hate so and so. Everyone's against me. And, so that was always going on. So to have somewhere where I could take that and get it on paper. And I hadn't really been spiritual, but she suggested that I like ask God to remove it. And so I would write that at the end. And I wouldn't have believed it. She said, well, do it skeptically, just see what happens. She didn't push any belief system on me, but the thing is, I so like radically recovered so fast that I became a believer. And it's not a
Sure.
conflict for me now to find out like the science of why that works. It's either all true or none of it's true. Like, of course, God wants me sane. Of course, God made my brain to function on my behalf and allow me to take sane action in my best interest. And so that's kind of what it does for you. But it also, over time, doing it for 32 years now, and, I taught my kids. And the reason I'm friends with my first husband and his wife is they do it. And all my
Hmm.
life, I've been sharing it with people. And initially, I just went to Al-Anon, the 12-step program for families of alcoholics, where I certainly qualified. But I'll just say, although I qualified and I sponsored hundreds of women there, I was a bull niche there. Uh, Different people have different problems, and mine were, my problems were kind of loud. I learned to sort of
Yeah.
like tone it down. Like perfectionism is not one of my problems, but more like, yeah, I nearly died, and then I was doing these drugs, and yeah, I was a little like kind of all over the place, but it helped me tremendously. I was there for like 25 years. But what I was teaching them was this. I call it the daily practice, the writing and the meditation. The woman who taught me, she goes, these are our 12 steps. And there's a bunch of AAs who do that as their 12 steps. And it pisses some people off. Who cares? They're sober.
Yeah.
Alcohol was
Yes.
not my problem. Alcohol was not my
Right.
problem. But what I got from this and what I saw other people who did it is what they say in AA, you become happy, joyous, and free. It's not all this like, and then my therapist said, it was like people were laughing, they were having fun, they were having adventures, they were screwing up and fixing it and, having a life. And that was very appealing to me.
So you've been teaching other people these techniques for years,
Yeah.
and you've amassed quite a good following on YouTube. I don't know all the platforms you're on, but obviously I was aware of you before we ever talked to each other.
Yeah.
Uh, and then the California board came down on you. What did they
Yeah.
accuse you of? The California Board of Psychology. What did
Well,
they
what
accuse
happened?
you of, and why are they wrong?
Oh, let me just lead up to that to say I started
Okay.
Crappy Childhood Fairy 10 years ago. And what had happened was so many people wanted my help. Like if I went to an Al-Anon meeting in another town, I'd have like 10 people asking me to sponsor. People could see like she has a system, she has a routine, she has a structured thing she does, and she seems very happy, that attractive energy of somebody who's happy, joyous, and free most of the time. and and so it would happen so much. So I made a little website, and I sent people emails and said, here, give me your email. I'll send this to you. If you really like it, I'll talk to you. But I didn't want to spend, an hour on the phone teaching them what I do. And they would just be like, oh, no, that's not what I want. So I did that. And
Right.
then they kept asking me about the writing. So I made a video and I hosted it on YouTube and streamed it into my little Wix site or whatever it was at the time, the first crappy childhood fairy site. And I thought that one day I really wanted to write a book about it. And I have now, but that came much later. One day I went over, I had like 2 videos going to my little site, and I would post on Facebook, and I would do these articles with these little shitty cartoons that I still started putting on Substack now, my old cartoons. But one day I don't know, maybe I had 100 followers on my blog, and then I looked at YouTube and I had like 2,000 subscribers, and I was like, whoa! And it figured. Nowadays I look back and it's like, of course, I was always made for YouTube. I was making little videos as soon as video came out. I was making little home movies before that, starting when I was 6. It's just how I roll. I was a comedian. I was in theater. So I started this YouTube channel, and because I had worked in healthcare, my stuff was very clinical. I worked in healthcare for 30 years. I produced a lot of online education for doctors and things. So I have a lot of knowledge and just habit of writing in a very responsible, ethical way. I don't make audacious claims. I don't bullshit around. I'll be like, some research shows this, other people find, blah, blah, blah. I never say, I cure you. But I do say, you can heal childhood PTSD. I like the term childhood PTSD. It's not clinical, it's colloquial. People know what it is.
Yes.
CPTSD, maybe they know, but that's for people who diagnose and care about codes, and there isn't even a code for it. But I don't really care about that stuff. It's like me and the people, my peers. And I'm like, look, I recovered. I got regulated. It was when I learned about the word regulation that everything took off. I was like, that's what's happening. I'm re-regulating. I got to show everybody how to do this. So I was teaching that, and it just was so popular. And 2020 came, and my business, my video production company shut down forever because of the pandemic. And all my time was available to do crappy childhood fairy, and it just took off. Everybody was like, right. It was just a perfect meeting of what I had to offer and what people needed at that time. So it grew a lot. I made courses. I started a membership. To this day, I do like live calls several times a week, at least 5 times a week. I'm on there live. 5 times a month. And I
Hmm.
started having a staff of 10 and doing workshops. First, I produced them. Then these like retreat centers started hosting me. I got a deal with Hay House for 2 books. Things just really took off, and it was wonderful. My whole family worked for the company. And I would walk down the street and get recognized. And it was just this weird thing because what I was teaching was so natural. And I was very careful what I said, but one video I made was called Why I Quit Therapy. And the answer was, it was making me worse. And now I know about dysregulation, and they should really take that into account, that dysregulated people can't do it. So that video went out, and I got a little bit of hate. There used to be this big online platform for people who worked in trauma business, and they had invited me to put all my blog posts up there, which I did. But one day the editor herself went into the comments and said, but Anna, people should not be writing and meditating when they're not in the presence of a licensed clinician. And about there
Oh
is when I
boy.
started going, what the fuck are you talking about? Meditate with a therapist only. Like, are you nuts? Where do you live? Like, what do you think we all do all day? And just like go to therapy every time we need something? Like, hardly anybody could go to therapy, even if they wanted
That's
to, even
I've
if it
heard a
were
lot of
good and
ridiculous
fixed
stuff,
us.
but that one is actually a little surprising. You shouldn't be meditating outside the presence of a licensed therapist.
It was insane. And it was
Okay.
so degrading. It was like in front of the public and everything. And I pushed back, and that's one of my habits is when you do work online, you get haters, and I'm not afraid to
Yeah.
block people who are abusive. I don't need that, and it doesn't serve anyone. But I'll listen to criticisms, but I will just push back. But I will always
Yeah.
be more civil than your average Joe. I won't resort to ad hominem attacks. I will defend myself. My channel has an incredible community because it's moderated like that, where people are very constructive and very helpful and share their stories. And occasionally they come on there with old internet habits of coming on and just trashing me or
Yeah.
somebody else in the comments. And we're just like right on it. We're like, you don't get to abuse people here. That's not what any of
So
this exists
when did
for.
the California Board of Psychology take
So
notice of
yeah,
you? And
it was secret. I didn't know at first. It was 3.5 years ago. Somebody came to one of my free calls where I teach my daily practice. I'll just for the record, I teach a lot of stuff like how to date slowly so that your attachment wound doesn't take over, how to be sociable at a party, even when that's very uncomfortable for you, you know, how to re regulate is certainly a big piece of it. um, how to try to make braver decisions for yourself instead of always taking the bad job or the terrible apartment or something. I teach practical things. I do not teach people how to sit and process their emotions. I don't believe in an inner child. I know it helps a lot of people. I don't find metaphorical things like that to be helpful. I'm just like, no, I don't have an inner child. I just have me, and I'm an adult now. and I don't know, I'm intact in that way, but I have my own point of view, but I'm not out there trying to knock anybody down. I'm like, good. God bless everybody who tries to help, who makes a difference. You need that out there, but I do it this way. I'm practical. So I was shocked, and I've always been so careful. But it turns out somebody came to one of my calls and she said that I was mean. She reported me to the state. They have a little website where you can do that. I was mean and she felt triggered. And I remember her.
for God's
She
sake.
was she was somebody I had to kick off the call. I used to take hundreds of people on a live Zoom all by myself, and I had to kick her off because she was being hostile to people. And I warned her
Yeah.
first, and then she kept going, and I just took her off the call. So she felt triggered, and she was able to report me. But obviously, this case has nothing to do with that. It got their attention.
Yes.
And so by about 2 years ago, I got the first certified letter and they said they had a concern and could they talk to me? And I said, sure. And they came over and somebody very harmless and not very intelligent came over and talked. And I told her what I was doing. I said, it's fine. We're not 22 minutes. We have language of cure. We're just learning how to do life and, how to get re-regulated. It's harmless stuff. Then she said, oh, well, this shouldn't be a problem. You won't hear from us. And then I did hear from them. And it was October 2024. And I got the next certified letter saying cease and desist. You have to shut down. It's a citation and a fine. They wanted $2,500 and for me to just stop operating. And I seriously thought it was a
And
phishing scam.
the accusation was that you were
You're
practicing
practicing
psychology without a
psychology without
license.
a license. Yeah. And I'm like, obviously I'm not. Later in the terrible hearing, they would accuse me of deceiving the public by saying I was a mythological creature, a fairy who waves a magic
What?
wand and
Oh,
cures people.
stop it.
That was one of 100 crazy things they accused me of. It literally was a witch hunt. I know they just said that, but it was like
They don't even believe what they're saying.
I was not allowed to
I can't
respond to
credit
anything.
people.
They don't believe what they're saying. No. So everybody's always, this is like a Rorschach test for what are they doing this for? Do you want me to cut to the chase? They're doing it because nobody cares what they think anymore. you know, Therapists got to have
Yes.
a license. And, all of us have wandered off the reservation. We're learning how to help ourselves in many ways, taking psychedelics, going to Crappy Childhood Fairy, learning yoga practices. We're doing what helps us. And as humans absolutely must have the right to do. Are we going to have charlatans? Yes. But do we have more charlatans per capita than they do? Who knows? Probably not.
I wouldn't
And
say so.
yeah,
I'm actually, you know, I don't do your practice, but I do coaching and consulting. Again, I'm
yeah,
not a therapist either. I'm
yeah,
someone with a lot of personal and now professional experience dealing with problem personalities, child abuse, domestic abuse, and um, the I am there are people who come to me, as I'm sure you've had clients like this too, who maybe who have real serious problems. They need serious help. You or me may be one of the first people they've spoken to who actually
Hmm.
understands what their parents really were like, what really
Hmm.
happened, and what you are left with, and how much damage that does. And the reflexive, the instinct is to say, oh, you need a therapist, but I can't recommend this to people anymore. I don't trust most of them. That's me.
I
I'm
do
not.
have
I'm
that
not
feeling, and
asking
I'm
you.
torn because, yeah, I don't know. I always, out of obligation, will say, you might want to see a therapist about this. Have you had a good experience with it? I don't want to dissuade people from anything. I'm like
Right.
super, like, I feel like choosing who will help you is like very sacred, and it's your sovereign decision, and you got to do it by intuition. And if you feel like it's going to help you, you absolutely should do it. If you believe in it, you should try it. At least they
Yeah.
know it's not the only game in town. But the board would like it to be the only game in town, and that was one of their arguments. And their expert witness even came out and said it would be better for people to have no help at all in their lives if it couldn't be from a licensed therapist. And this is the
Well,
same expert witness who looked at my website and said she's a fraud. She speaks with authority. She charges money for her coaching, as if that's a crime. And she talks. She says the
yep.
word PTSD, and therefore she's a danger to
Yeah.
society. They accused me of that.
Yeah. I'm not surprised. Well, this is a tease. We're coming to a close here, and we're going to get into more of the details when we have our live stream conversation. But let's leave the audience with a cliffhanger. Anna has decided not to take it. She has filed suit against the California Board of Psychology. And could you give us just a quick
Yeah,
synopsis of what your claims are and what you want? And then when we come back and do our live stream, we're going to get into all the details.
yeah. Well, I've always been a champion of free speech, so I happen to know a lot of people who are also champions, and one of them is a lawyer who knows lawyers. And when I told her what had happened to me, when I got this horrible letter and they were trying to shut me down, and that this hearing process was it was 2 full days. I wasn't allowed to speak. I wasn't allowed to ask questions. It was terrible. They said everything they wanted. She said, "Let me introduce you to 3 different public interest law firms." They were all interested. And these are people who my firm is the Pacific Legal Foundation, and I always say they
Yes.
are like Jedi. There's like 100 lawyers strong. They are fighting government overreach for common people who are just working, living, owning a house, whatever it is that's being violated. And they come in and they're just so cool and smart and organized. And they're just like, no, it's not going to stand. This is a First Amendment violation. See, the board exists to regulate therapists. I'm not a therapist. I don't enjoy those privileges or suffer those restrictions. It's not their purview. I'm not lying about what I am. They don't have the right to do this. You and I, Josh, have the right to say what we believe. And if we think it's crystal dolphins, we can say that. If we want to charge money
Yeah.
for people to say that, we can if we want to. It's a free country. And so what I'm doing is not objectionable. And it's just weird that they picked me because as influencers go, I'm pretty straight up, very straightforward.
Yeah.
I have good contracts with everybody, but it's a violation of my right to free speech. What happens in closed doors is free speech, and that's also true for therapy. And therapists just got their right to free speech affirmed in Childs v. Salazar. I can tell you about that next time.
Yeah, good.
So
Well, and
yeah,
let's bring that in when we have
yeah,
that conversation. So everybody, I
yeah.
want you to join us for our live stream where we're going to get into this in more detail. And I think it'll be really interesting for the audience to learn
Mhm.
also about this is not restricted to psychology boards. I've had
No.
experience of this in other areas, and
Yeah.
I do not have anything good to say about professional licensing boards. I think they usually work against the consumer. So
They want
Anna
to set a
Runkle,
precedent. Yeah. Yeah,
they do. Yeah,
I'm
they
fighting
do.
this so that you stay in business too, because they're after you now. They're after all of
Yeah.
us. Yeah,
Oh, absolutely.
yeah.
And thank God you are, and I can't wait to talk about it more. Anna Runkle, the crappy childhood fairy, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for taking this on, and I cannot wait to talk to you in more detail.
Thanks, Josh.
Meet Anton Van Vuren, founder of BiltongUSA.com. He is the king of biltong, along with the queen of biltong, his wife Nicole. And I wanted you guys in the audience to see the real people behind the product that sponsors this show. Welcome, Anton.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you very much for doing this with us today.
Tell us about founding the company. Why did you come from South Africa, take up in Texas, and decided that you wanted to make your living running a cured meat company?
Well, that's a long story which I will make real short, real quick. So
Okay.
I came over to the US with IT work and found myself really liking Texas. It looked very similar to where I'm from in South Africa. So when I got here, it kind of felt like home, and I was lucky enough to meet Nicole. Probably 6 7 months after I actually got here. Um, I was lucky enough to meet her, and we hit it off. And she really, really liked the food, which, make a long story short, ended up, us opening a biltong factory. So, and here we are today, and we are sponsoring your show, amongst a few others, and we are making exactly what's on the screen there. That's actually her with one of our slicing machines. So, I will pick this up just to show you like this, if I can do that. So that's
Yeah.
basically what she's got. Yeah, sorry, we do that. So that's basically what she's got. And she's running what we call a full slab of biltong, running it through the machine and slicing it for packaging, basically.
So I had never heard of biltong before I met you, and of course, you send me a package a couple of times a month, and I love this stuff, and it flies out of my freezer because everybody else does. The most common question, and I had this question too. People ask, "Is this beef jerky?" And if it's not, what's the difference?
Yeah. So I guess, I mean, you could probably term it as a South African beef jerky, which is what a lot of people do. But I would say it's beef jerky meat prosciutto. It's more like prosciutto because it's a meat that hangs, ages, and dries over time. Jerky generally is heated through like 145 degrees, so it's a cooked product for the most part. And
Okay.
then there's all kinds of flavors and sugars and stuff added for flavor. What we do is we add salt, pepper, coriander, a few other bits and pieces, and you get the flavor of the meat. So it's a cured product, not a cooked product.
Yeah. And audience, he's right. This is really beefy flavored. I mean, you can taste the seasoning. It's vinegar and spices mainly, but you can taste the beef come through much more strongly than you can with beef jerky. And I like jerky too, but it's more about the flavorings added. You can really taste the beef in this. I am curious that piece you're putting through there. What cuts of beef? What cuts on a cow make the best biltong?
So we use different kinds of roasts. So you can look at like top round, you can look at bottom round, you can look at a eye of round. You can pretty much make biltong out of almost any kind of meat. Like picanha would work, for example, which is a top sirloin. That would work. But what you want to try and do is, if you use really expensive meat, that's best kind of served on a fire. So you want to look at the kind of cheaper roast cuts. And
Yep.
if you don't like fat, then you can get them as lean as you want, and you can just slice biltong. In fact, I mean, I don't want to punt our podcast. We have a small little podcast, and I've actually got a program which is program 69 on its pin, and I show exactly how to make it, because there's a lot of people
Oh,
that
excellent.
want to make it at home, and we sell the spices, so you can, and I explain exactly in the video how you make it. So you take it, you slice it, you lay it in the vinegar and spice mixture, 24 to 36 hours, and then you hang dry it. And it's as simple as that.
Says it couldn't be easier. People are going to be interested in this, so let's tell them where they can find that video. Where do you guys post your videos, and what account do you post them under?
Okay, so our channel on Rumble is called Rustic Ranch, and our YouTube channel will change in future. Right now, it's called Eat at Anton's, and it's on Rumble. It's podcast 69 of the current kind of series, but it's pinned to the top of the Rumble Rumble channel. So if you go into Rumble, you'll see it there immediately. So even if you're not on Rumble, you can just go to Rumble and you can find us under Rustic Ranch.
That sounds good. And I imagine also you guys just, type in biltong BuiltOnUSA.com, Anton Van Buren. You're probably going to find the channel too. So if you want to make
King
your
of
own,
Biltong
you
will take
can.
you there. But BuiltOnUSA.com, and you will go directly to us. Absolutely.
Okay. Well, you don't have to make your own. And if you're not going to make your own, I highly recommend that you get it from these guys. Go to BuiltOnUSA.com. Notice that you can get various different levels of heat and spice, all the way from plain through ghost pepper, which I can't take, but some of my friends really like. You guys also have a really nice sideline in imported European groceries, which is worth checking out too. So don't forget, BuiltOnUSA.com, and don't forget, when you order, use the promo code Josh and you'll get 10% off. Anton, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Don't forget to tune in this coming Wednesday, August 26th at 3 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time for an extended conversation with Anna Runkle, the crappy childhood fairy. We gave you a preview with our discussion this week, but we're going to spend at least an hour and a half talking not only about what Anna does and why she does it and how she came to do it, but the problem of state licensing boards like the California Board of Psychology that are trying to put a gag over people like Anna. And frankly, it could spread around the country and put a gag on people like me. She's done a very brave thing by launching a First Amendment lawsuit against this. So Wednesday, August 26th, 3 p.m. U.S. Eastern on YouTube, Rumble, and X for our live stream. Now, I told you last week how gobsmacked I was at the female reaction to Lindsay Clancy murdering her 3 children in 2023. And as black-pilled as I am, I did not predict that we would see an outpouring of female support for a mother who strangled her 3 kids with exercise resistance ropes. But before we dive into that update, do you need somebody to talk to about all this craziness? Do you see the psychopathy that's all around us? Do you see the narcissism, the dishonesty, the censure, the abuse that's heaped on people who tell the truth? Does it feel like you're alone on an island with no way off and you're surrounded by sharks with personality disorders? Well, you probably are. If you could use somebody to talk to about it, you found the right guy. You can make an appointment with me for an hour at joshuaslocum.net. I offer private, hour-long, confidential consulting and coaching sessions. It's not therapy. It's not mental health treatment. I am not a licensed mental health professional. It is conversation with someone who sees the craziness the way you do and who lived it personally and came out on the other side. I specialize in narcissistic problems, personality pathology, thinking and behavior. Maybe you've got a family member who shows signs of a personality disorder. Maybe you work with a group of people who are captured by a narcissist. Whatever it is, you can bring it up with me, and it's a great time to book because I am offering a back-to-school discount, whether you have kids or not. You can take advantage of it. For the next few weeks, I've cut my normal rate down to $75. That's a $50 discount. Visit joshuaslocum.net to book time. And if you've got questions about anything, be it calendar times or my rates, just send me an email through the site, joshuaslocum.net. You know, I said a minute ago that I didn't expect to see this kind of outpouring of support from women, but I should have predicted this. Why wouldn't so many women see themselves in murderer Lindsay Clancy? I know I'm supposed to say allegedly because she hasn't been convicted of murder yet. I understand that she hasn't legally been convicted of murder, but she did in fact strangle and kill her 3 children. She's got it all. She's a well-to-do white woman in Massachusetts. She was a professional nurse. She's got it. She had an Instagram perfect, idyllic family life and resting bitch face. How could women have resisted? I wrote about it this week for The Blaze. You would think that growing up under an abusive, personality disordered mother would immunize someone like me from shock, but it didn't. Some of what I'm going to call the Clancy Girls now claim that Lindsay Clancy's poor husband, Patrick, who came home after an errand that Lindsay sent him out on so that she could kill the kids, he came home and found her after she threw herself out a second-story window, and she said the kids are in the basement, and he went in and found them all dead. Now, the Clancy girls are claiming that it was Patrick who killed the kids and who framed Lindsay. And how do they know this? Well, from astrological charts, of course. No, I'm not joking. Go back to last week's show. We played the video for you. So, former labor and delivery nurse Lindsay Clancy is now on trial for murder, and the children she killed were Cora, who was 5 years old, Dawson, who was 3 years old, and Callan, who was 8 months old. There's no dispute about who killed them. That's not in controversy. Lindsay Clancy has admitted it. Lindsay Clancy's defense lawyer admits that she strangled the children. The question for the jury is whether she was criminally responsible for what she did. She's using Massachusetts' version of the insanity plea. She's claiming that she had postpartum psychosis and that a male voice told her that she had to kill her kids. Well, her lawyers say she wasn't criminally responsible. They argue that Lindsay suffered from postpartum psychosis and bipolar disorder. That's manic depression. She didn't have bipolar disorder. There's no indication of that whatsoever. There's no indication of postpartum psychosis. If you've heard that, if you've seen that repeated, and you probably have, it's not true. Read the court transcripts. Look at the evidence. None of the mental health teams, none of the doctors that she visited very frequently before this happened, nobody noticed disorganized thinking or psychosis at all. It's not in her charts. Prosecutors, of course, say that she deliberately arranged to get her husband out of the house and that she knew exactly what she was doing. And that's what it appears to be to me. I don't know what the jury's going to decide, but what I do know is that thousands of American women, I can't tell you how many, but it's not just a few thousand. It has to be tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands. They've decided already. All across social media, the Clancy girls have turned this woman into an object of identification and affection. They see her as a poor, unsupported, overwhelmed mother who was begging for help, and all they did was drug her until she was peckled. Does that shock you? I hope it does. Because it's real and it's deadly fucking serious. Here is a crowd of women cheering Lindsay's arrival at the courthouse in Plymouth, Massachusetts. Here are some Clancy girls making cute faces and getting their pictures taken with Lindsay Clancy's defense attorney. Did you know there's a new TikTok trend for aspiring murder moms? What you do is you grab your baby, you turn on crocodile tears, you set up your phone, you open the video camera, then you play audio of Lindsay Clancy's diary being read aloud by her defense attorney from the trial, and you cry on camera, and you use the phrase, "Same Lindsay."
I'm desperate to get a mental break from taking care of everyone. My mind is trying to make something physically wrong with me. My mind never shuts off. It's constantly thinking of the next thing someone needs. I can't shut it off. I desperately want to go back to work, but now I don't know how I'm going to function, and it worries me. Wrote that, right?
Correct.
There were two pages that were blank that she didn't even write on, and then on the third entry, affirmations. She wrote affirmations. On November 22nd of 2022, I am calm. I will remain calm today. There is nothing that needs to be on my mind. The weight is lifted from my mind. I will sleep tonight.
We have a dire, immediate, society-wide problem of women identifying with evil, sympathizing with evil, and financially supporting evil. Child murder. It should be socially unthinkable for anyone, let alone thousands of women and mothers, to openly weep for a woman who killed her 3 children by strangling them with exercise ropes. That should be unthinkable, undoable. Even 20 years ago, now that's not that long ago, this kind of moral derangement would have made a woman a pariah if she dared to speak this out loud. Well, not anymore. In fact, the Clancy Girls are going out of their way to exonerate this modern Medea. Take the what's being called the Musgrove Family Fund. That's Lindsay Clancy's maiden name, Musgrove. It has raised almost $1 million allegedly for Lindsay Clancy's parents to help them, Mike and Paula Musgrove. They relocated from Connecticut to Massachusetts to support their daughter. But this is not for them. This is support for Lindsay. Unbelievable. Take a look at that. When I took this screenshot, $929,978. As of August 23rd, 2026, it's gone over $1 million. And judging from the that's $400,000 more than the blacks gave for Karmelo Anthony. This is white women's Karmelo Anthony. Judging from the comments left by donors, many of the women are more than happy to offer Lindsay absolution. Quote, "Strong support and hugs for Lindsay and her supportive parents. My sister was also a registered nurse, and she went through postpartum depression and postpartum psychosis. It was so hard to watch her go through it." Next donor. "We stand beside and behind you, Lindsay and family. I struggled with postpartum depression and PPA. I don't know what it is, but everything's postpartum now. Postpartum. And many times it felt like I was asking for help, reaching up only to grab air. I am sending lots of love and virtual hugs." And this one from another donor. "I know it feels like it now, but you're not alone, Lindsay. Your emotion and love for your babies is felt through the screen. From one mom who's been through psychosis to another, I just want to wrap my arms around you and shower you with love and support. You are a wonderful mom. It wasn't you that day. It may have been your body, but it certainly wasn't your mind and thoughts. From a Kentucky mom." So love and virtual hugs for this wonderful mom. Personal emotional identification with a woman who committed a crime so depraved that it forms the basis of one of the darkest psychological archetypes in Western mythology, the murderous mother, Medea. For what it's worth, I don't believe Lindsay Clancy had a psychotic break because there isn't any evidence of that. I think she's a liar. I don't believe she was suffering from postpartum psychosis in any way, shape, or form. I don't believe that she had, quote, too many psychiatric drugs that caused her to hallucinate and lose her mind. It's hard to see how that's possible when evidence from the trial shows that Lindsay Clancy didn't even take the recommended dosages of many of these drugs. She'd take a couple for a couple days and then just leave the prescription to go and move on to the next one. I believe that Lindsay Clancy shows obvious narcissistic personality disorder and that she's lying about hallucinations to cover up the fact that she wanted her children dead because they interfered with the lifestyle and attention that she believed she was entitled to. I think she killed them because their existence on Earth meant that everything couldn't be about Lindsay all the time. I think her children were a narcissistic injury to her ego. Well, it gets worse. Some Clancy girls now claim, of course, that her poor husband Patrick actually killed the girls and framed her. Remember that's what astrology told them? Whatever the truth is, it does not ameliorate the shocking, reflexive sympathy that countless women are displaying. This was the very first place their emotions went, sympathy for a murdering mother. Instead of being stunned by a diabolical, unthinkable kind of murder, women across social media and out on the street, I'm hearing anecdotes from friends, people that I know online who are hearing this in hair salons and at the post office. They see a mother who killed her children as the real victim. No one would make these excuses for a male family annihilator. And that is what Lindsay Clancy is. She is a family annihilator. Almost no one popped up to defend Chris Watts when he killed his wife and kids. No one wanted to start a conversation about the pressure that fathers are under to provide in order to deflect from the fact that he murdered his family. Men don't do this. Women do. Women sympathize with murderers. Men don't. No one makes mental health excuses for men who exterminate their children. And it's only women who get this sympathy. Why? Well, since the 1960s, we Americans have been under a delusional, magical spell called feminism. This magical spell managed to convince an entire country that women who live in the richest country in the world have been unbearably oppressed. All of a sudden, all traditions were overturned, motherhood became a burden, children became a ball and chain forced on women by patriarchal men. Feminism took over everyone's mind in this country, left-leaning people, right-leaning people, centrist people, men and women. It has long been accepted as fact that women are always and have ever been subjugated by men from the beginning of time. That having children was a prison sentence that is imposed on women by men. That being married and raising a family deprived women of becoming something real in the world. We've all heard this nonstop since the 60s. Feminism is a lie, and it is a tool of the narcissistic, resentful mind. It's pitted women against men and against their own children. It has convinced millions of women in the freest and wealthiest country in world history that they are unsupported and exploited. It'd be hysterically funny if the consequences weren't so egregious, but they are. Lindsay Clancy stands a decent chance of being let off under the insanity plea because we refuse to acknowledge a fundamental aspect of human nature that everyone knew across the world until the mid-20th century. Women have the capacity to do evil. I put my abusive, narcissistic, psychopathic mother out of my life permanently 10 years ago. That's long enough to be over the initial shock and despair of discovering that the one person that I was supposed to be able to trust tried to destroy me. It doesn't keep me up at night any longer, but I have been having a hard time sleeping for 2 weeks now after discovering a new horror. If my mother had succeeded in killing me, killing my sister, or killing my brother, our names would be forgotten today. Our mother would be seen as a tragic victim, a single mother who was failed by the system and everyone in her life. But at least she'd get hugs. Sleep well.